SaWGuy podcast.
Like scary movies. What's your favorite scary movie?
Here's Johnny.
We'll tear your soul apart.
The boogeyman is real, and you found him.
Game over, man. Game over.
What do you want?
I want to hear you scream. Drop the prime time, bitch.
Welcome to the SaWGuy podcast. As always, y'all know I'm the SaWGuy, and yes, you're joining me for episode 31 on American Horror Story. I had to emphasize on the American part here, because I don't know, I mean, personally for me, I know everyone's going to give me shit when I say this, but, I was a semi-fan of this whole series. But everybody kept asking me, what do you think of this new season? What did you think of the previous season? Are you going to do an episode on American Horror Story? And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and do an episode on American Horror Story. Because right now they have season 8 going on right now. And that's the one about the apocalypse and stuff like that. But I've been asked so many times about it, and I normally don't do TV shows other than The Twilight Zone, because that was a classic. But I figured, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and do this episode, right? So, as I said before, you're all joining me for American Horror Story. If you've never heard of American Horror Story, I'll break it down to you, give you a little bit of background story about the show and things like that. And, I know with the seasons, there's so many of them, I'm not going to break them all down like I normally do to like a movie, like how I normally do. Because then I'd probably have like a 4 or 5, maybe an 8-part episode. I know, and then I get it too. You're like, man, you're too detailed. Well, I mean, shit. When I didn't choose the horror life chose me. You know what I mean? So, but anyways, without further ado, let's get started. So, American Horror Story. What is this? It's basically a TV show. Typically runs about an hour. Sometimes the season premieres, they'll do 2 hours, or at least they used to, like in the early seasons. But this show came out, and I call this the golden age of horror television. And this came out in 2011. And I say it's the golden age of horror television because in 2010, the year before, you had this big show that came out that everyone's still talking about, which is The Walking Dead. Because of that being so successful with AMC and everything, and at the time they had Breaking Bad and all these other good shows, all these other companies, they wanted to get in on that, So, Fox and their sister company FX, they figured, okay, well, let's put some money into this. Let's do a TV show, and we're going to call it American Horror Story. And I don't think that was the original name, was to do American Horror Story, but the person that they gave the most, how do you say it? They gave the most responsibility to, the guy, the head cheese in charge, was the writer Ryan Murphy. And he decided that he was going to, use his stories and basically turn this into the show what it is now, In the early seasons, they never had too many, how do you say it? There was not too many winks because it was still new. But when he was writing, all the episodes down, he had certain actors in mind. And one of those main actors was Jessica Lange. And she's a sweetheart. She personally for me, she made the American Horror Story TV show. And I'll get to that in a minute. But anyways, he had it in rhyme. He had it in mind that he was going to go ahead and, write the episodes based on her being similar to like a main character, but not really the main character. And then you find out later on within the series that she was the main character. Like, I don't know how to put a word to describe it for his writing. But his writing was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But anyways, it came out, and let's see, the actual release date was October 5th, 2011, which collides in what I was saying, that it's the golden age of horror television, because Walking Dead the year before came out in October. I think it was October 10th. October 10th. So this one came a year after, and, they didn't tell you anything about it. They just said, oh, tune in to American Horror Story, tune in, They made it look like it was a good horror television show. And the first season, because what they do is, later on in the series, when they started to do like season 2, 3, 4, and all that, they call this season 1, but now they call it the Murder House because every season follows a different theme, which is really cool. So as they start this season 1, now I'm going to break down the seasons for you. They did the Murder House, which had 12 episodes, and I believe the first episode was like 2 hours, so roughly that's like 14 hours, you know. But what they did is that they played it off, you know, each season has a different theme. This season followed a family that they look like they're perfect and stuff, but later on you find in the episode that you have actors, what was the actors? You had Dylan McDermott, you had, who was it? I can't remember the actress's name, but she played the mom in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. You have Tisa Farmiga. She's a big star now with The Nun coming out. She's the main star on that, and she's done other stuff too. But basically, they were like a perfect family. They're moving into this house, right? And this house, they got it for dirt cheap, you know. Supposedly the house was, you know, haunted and things like that, you know. And there was, when they moved in, it wasn't they moved in because they were all happy and everything. They moved in because, you know, Dylan McDermott, he, I guess, was a teacher. And he had an affair on his, well, he cheated on his wife, had an affair with a student. Got the student pregnant. And, you know, they moved into this house because he wanted to move away from all that, try to rebuild his family. And I like that aspect of how they play on it because as someone who's been in a fucked up situation, once you throw a wrench to something, nothing's ever the same. It never is, you know? So they're playing on that aspect. And while he's trying to build up the family again, he neglects his daughter. And they only have one kid. And her daughter, Tisa Farmiga, she's, you know, they make her play like she was a 17, 18-year-old. In real life, I think she was like 16. You know, she was really young. It was like her first acting roles. Ah, damn hair. Can you tell I'm having a bad hair day? Everything's all sticking to like this. It's freaking hot in here. But anyways, but yeah, you know, so they neglect her. And she becomes friends with Evan Peters' character. And she's dealing with her own personal demons, which is, you know, she's very depressed and, you know, kind of going through... I gotta laugh because I know everybody in my age, you know, when you became a senior in high school, you kind of have to go through different phases, you know, and she's kind of going through the goth phase, you know, like, forget this, you know, fuck life, you know, we all been there, right? So it plays on that. So the whole series follows all this, and then you find out why Dylan McDermott had cheated on his wife, because he had this weird sex addiction, you know, and, like, he would see their maid that would come around, and she was an older lady, but mentally in his mind, like, he would see her as, like, this young hot chick. And it was like, whoa, okay. So, for me, for the first season, what I got out of it, it reminded me very much of Rob Zombie's work. You know, I love Rob Zombie's work because it's different, it's unique, it's odd. And that's what this first season came out with a bang like that, you know. As I said before, Jessica Lange, she was one of the main actors, the characters in most of the seasons. She played the neighbor that was kind of like the Snoopy neighbor, because we all have one of those, right? Lord knows I have one right here, you know. But anyways, they played off on a lot of that aspect, you know. And eventually you find out that the house was haunted. Thaisa Farmiga's character, she becomes friends with, God, what's his name? Evan Peters. Trying to remember his character's name because I watched all these seasons to do this episode for y'all, okay? But I guess he was talking about how he was kind of an oddball and, you know, didn't like the world because, you know, it's a filthy freaking horror show, you know, and he was very depressed and angry, you know, like most troubled teenagers are, you know? So it plays a lot of that aspect, and they had some brutal scenes in there. There was a scene where he basically... I don't know if it was a dream sequence or not, but they showed that he came in and did like a school shooting, and I was like, what the fuck? It's just, with this first season, they came in with a bang, let me tell you. Because they had, it was very Rob Zombie-ish, but they also included a lot of stuff that would piss people off, get people talking, and they did a great job on it, you know? And the whole story of season 1 was to follow this family and to see if they try to rebuild things. Obviously, that didn't work out. And Jessica Lange was like the Snoopy neighbor that didn't like them. And then you find out that it was a murder house because there was people that were murdered and it was haunted by ghosts. And the whole season plays off that. I don't want to say that it's more Walking Dead-ish, because Walking Dead was great when it first started, but then later on, they would do that shit where it's like it builds up, it ends, and then they say, okay, well, tune in next year when the next season comes in. Like, that pisses me the fuck off. That really does. Like, that's a middle finger to any fan's face. So, what they did for American Horror Story is that they built it all the way up. And then after the first season, they basically said, okay, we're coming back with season 2. And season 2, they were hinting, which, this is what I love about the series. They do different themes on it, right? So season 2 wasn't going to be like a pickup of where season 1 left off. You know, season 2 is going to be a complete new storyline. Same actors. They'll add in like 1 or 2 characters. I think they added Kathy Bates. They added Sarah Paulson. All your main characters you see through most of the seasons. And season 2 is regarded as one of the best ones. Season 1, 2, and 3 are the top dogs out of this whole series, right? So season 2 basically takes place in a, I guess you could say an asylum / church. And it takes place like, I want to say in the 60s. I think 1964 I wrote down. Yeah, 1964. So you had 13 episodes with this. I don't have the premiere date and when it premiered, but I think they did it earlier, so that way it ends like right after Halloween. That's when they started this new trend of like starting in next September and it ends like right after Halloween. Because basically now the new trend in 2018, as soon as September 1st hits, it's fucking Halloween already, right? So, what they did with the asylum is that basically they played on this story that it's a church that runs this asylum, right? And supposedly it's based off true events. I never went around and started doing the research because, you know, there's 8 seasons and I'm just like, shit, I gotta break down all these seasons. But anyways, this church was running this asylum, right? And, you know, you have the same actors in there. You have Sarah Paulson. She's, you know, new to the series now at this point. She plays a reporter. You have Evan Peters, who was like a serial killer and everything. Jessica Lange, she played like the sister or the nun that was in control of it. And then you had other actors in there too. God, I can't remember her name. I think her name was Lily. I wrote it down. Lily Raby. She was the one who played... she played a big role in season 3, which I'll get to in a sec. But anyways, this whole series follows that this church, they're doing the Lord's work or the good work to, you know, try to help these people that are criminally insane, people that are insane, that are mentally ill, and that they're trying to help them. And then you have... I'm laughing because I'm not a fan of his work at all. SaWGuY Quintero. He was the guy who played Spock in the remake. He just... Yeah, he did this before he did the Star Trek remake. I'm not a sci-fi kind of guy, but SaWGuY Quintero, he's, like, not one of my favorite actors. But anyways, he plays in this, and he plays as a doctor who is trying to help these people, right? So the whole series goes is that, you know, why is he going there all the time? Why is he there all the time, you know? Comes to find out he was doing fucking experiments on these people that are criminally ill or mentally ill, and, you know, they did it purposely. He would do it purposely to torture them just because, you know, he knew that no one would believe him. No one would say anything about it, you know? So the whole season plays on the fact that he's this killer doctor, and he, you know, he's doing these crazy scientist work on everybody. And then Jessica Lange was a part of it. Lily Raby, her character was a part of Jessica Lange because they were like 2 nun sisters watching over everything. And the whole series goes into that. And then there's a lot of, you know, back and forth with Sarah Paulson because she's a reporter. She gets caught in the midst of it. Then she escapes. And, you know, season 2 was a little different. It was a little different. They weren't as edgy as season 1. But season 2, they had a little bit of comedic in there. I mean, they lightened it up by having Jessica Lange, you know, sing. There was a couple of songs. They did like a couple singing. God, what do they call it? Like musical spots, you know? That's why I'm like, I'm not a guy that likes musical, you know? I do horror movies and horror, and that's all I do, right? Then they come back and said, okay, we're going to come back with season 3, right? And season 3, it showed that they're in the swamp. It showed like a lot of trailers, a lot of winks to it, and it played off like, okay, what are they going to do in the swamp? And to me, season 3 was one of my favorites. I would say it's number 2 on my list. It should be number 1, but it's number 2. But what this whole thing followed was the Coven. That's what they call the season. And it's not season 3, it's the Coven. And what they followed was a group of witches who basically, all these people, they live their normal lives, right? All these girls. And then it comes to find out they become outcasts because they have these powers to do things, witch-like things. So then they find out that there's a school in Louisiana, and they go to basically focus and learn how to deal with their powers and stuff, right? And as this is going on, it shows Kathy Bates, her character. She plays in, because there's a lot of flashbacks in this one. It shows that in the early 1800s, colonial times, she's this slave owner. She doesn't like certain ethnic groups of people, and she's the old school imperialist, basically wants to control everything, right? And she messes with the wrong people, the wrong group, and they put a curse on her that she could never die. So they basically buried her alive, and she was buried alive for years. And then obviously, the witches, they open her grave some way. I forgot how they opened it, but they released her and everything, and then she was able to be living. Well, she lived from the 1700s. And then, she didn't live through those normal periods until 2013. So they brought her in, and, they played off a lot on her character, because they had, a bunch of different themes going on with it. And while that's going on, you have other actors involved in this season. Emma Roberts, she became pretty big in this season because she didn't really do too much of horror. She did Scream 4, and she basically said it herself that she didn't like horror films or doing anything with horror. But American Horror Story, made her really shine. Same thing with Evan Peters. I laugh at it because Evan Peters, before he did American Horror Story, and before he did this whole Quicksilver thing, with X-Men, he was basically Kick-Ass's, second best friend. If you go back and actually watch Kick-Ass, that's why I was like, what? He was in that film, Yeah, little tidbit when I watched it on TV the other day, But anyways, so the whole Coven goes into this whole thing where they're learning how to harness their powers, and girls being girls, they don't like her because she thinks she's ugly. They don't like her because she's this, and da-da-da-da-da, They play a lot on that, And they basically were trying to show that there are a bunch of witches living in New Orleans, learning how to control their powers and stuff. And then you have Jessica Lange, who's the head witch of the school. She has a daughter, Sarah Paulson, and they're basically, showing the world they're witches, but don't be afraid, they're not going to hurt you, that kind of deal. And then you end up meeting Lily Ravy's character, where she gets outcast, but she ends up living in a swamp. Then you find out that, what's her name? Angela Bassett. Oh man, Angela Bassett. She's an amazing actor. She made, American Horror Story just as much as Jessica Lange did. But anyways, Angela Bassett, her character didn't like Kathy Bates because, Kathy Bates, she was the one who tortured her and her family and all that. And it had to do with a lot of witch power stuff. Then they even tied in voodoo, which I was like, what the fuck? Okay. And see, that right there, that got me hooked because you'll see a couple horror things that are voodoo-ish and stuff like that, like the Serpent and the Rainbow. But honestly, you don't see too much horror films that have to do with voodoo, tied in with witchcraft, which is pretty cool. So they mix two different themes and put it right into one in this series, right? So the whole series goes is that, Jessica Lange, she doesn't care about anything, she's kind of she has that addicting attitude where, or addicting, more of an addict attitude, doesn't care about anything, does whatever, wakes up this ghost called the Axeman, and then, he was a serial killer and stuff, and she basically, all the witches, they killed him, and then it plays off to different themes of where there was another good witch named Myrtle, and all this stuff, and, it's a lot of subplots to follow, and then Evan Peters was tied into it because he was this football jock, his mom was molesting him. I mean, granted, it wasn't as edgy as season 1, but they did have a lot of weird shit into it, and it was great. I mean, it was very well written, very well acted, and they did great, and it ended up being one of the best seasons, most reviews that I've read, everyone says it's the best season of all time. I can argue that because now with season 4 coming, season 4, like I said, most of these episodes all have 13 episodes except for a few. Season 4 was about the freak show. That's what they called it. And what it dealt with, society of how people were abnormally different, like Kathy Bates, she played the bearded lady. Angela Bassett, she played a lady who had, 3 breasts. They did Evan Peters as Lobster Boy, they called him Lobster Boy because his hands, were kind of welded. Well, I shouldn't say welded. They're webbed together, And so it played a lot of that aspect of, don't judge a book by its cover kind of deal. Jessica Lange, she was the main character because she controlled the freak show. And the freak show is kind of similar like a circus where they go to different spots and everything like that. And it was cool how they did it because it was set in 1952, which, if you think about it, during that time, that they call it the golden age of like circuses and stuff like that. Usually it's like the 1919s, but in the 50s it kind of got more prominent, So it played a lot off on that. And then at this point they started building their own iconic characters. And one of their main iconic characters whenever you think of American Horror Story is Twisty. He's the clown with a big ass smile and everything. And what I thought was fucked up, they only had him for like 4 episodes. And I was just like, are you fucking serious? So they teased the whole thing about it, that he's going to be this main guy. He was only in it for 4 episodes. But I love the aspect how they played his character, how he was a good person. He tried to do good for the kids. He didn't like the people that were considered freaks because they would fuck with him. And then what I loved about it too is that they showed the disparities between like the carnies, You have like people that were different, and then you had people that were clowns, and they didn't like each other, but they worked in the same area, It's just, whoa, okay, we can all relate to that shit, right? And that's what I liked about it. It played a lot of stuff that was going on at that time, A lot of, I shouldn't say civil rights movement and stuff that was going on in 2014 when this came out, but there was a lot of social issues going on at that time, so they tied a lot of that into this season, which is cool, because, they do, like, a lot of current events, and it makes you think twice about it, So, basically, Freak Show just goes through the whole series of, they're doing shows and stuff like that, and then they're controlled by this haunting spirit. He has, like, 2 faces, one in the front, one in the back, and, he's trying to make sure that they're following the rules. So, it had more of a spiritual ghost theme to it. Then they tied in, a lot of different other stuff to it. What else did they tie into? They tied in, like I said, a lot of themes to it, But it was more or less, the main theme I got out of it was don't judge a book by its cover, And that was really cool how they did that. Then you have season 5. Oh, man, let me tell you. I'm going to get a lot of comments on this. But season 5 with Hotel, I absolutely did not like at all. At all. Okay? So I'm going to break it down what happened with season 5. At this point, American Horror Story became really big. Us horror fans, we enjoyed it. We loved it, right? Jessica Lange, this is the rumor, Jessica Lange wanted a little bit more money because it became successful. And the whole rumor of speculation was Lady Gaga said, I would love to do an American Horror Story season. Well, Ryan Murphy got a hold of that, got her on board, and then Jessica Lange got pissed off because it's like, okay, you don't want to pay me my money, but yet you're bringing somebody who's higher star power than me when I developed the show, or made the show what it is. So she basically walked out on it. That's the rumor. It's never been confirmed or anything. That's all pure speculation, but that's what happened. And Jessica Lange, she dropped out after season 4, which sucked because season 5 had a lot of potential because it plays off the Hotel Cortez in LA, and it plays off the fact that it's haunted. And Lady Gaga, I call this season the most Hollywood season because they were relying on name power. And Lady Gaga was big at this time. She had fucking, 6 albums out, and she just dropped a new one before the season came. So, obviously they wanted to bring in other fans and horror fans, which I believe rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Because the season was great, like storyline-wise, but they, Lady Gaga didn't have that much acting experience. I'll just leave it at that, So they thrust her in as this main role, which you can tell just by watching the whole season. It wasn't meant for her. It was meant for Jessica Lange, which would have made it perfect, but, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? But they kind of thrust her into that main role, and it goes through how this hotel's haunted and all these ghosts and stuff, and then you see little winks between characters from previous seasons start to show up. My take on this is, I love the story with it. I love where they were going with it. If they just would have swapped the acting around a little bit, it would have been great. You know, I think if you had Sarah Paulson play as the Countess, Lady Gaga's role, and have Lady Gaga play Sarah Paulson's role, it would have been a little different. You know, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But me as a horror fan, I just got rubbed the wrong way on it because I was just like, you got to be kidding me, right? You know, but that's what they did, right? And I'll go through, you know, the next few seasons. A lot of people didn't like Hotel. But what's crazy about Hotel, and this is my metaphor that I think about it. Us horror fans, we're looking at it like, okay, this could be better, but we'll deal with it, you know. With Lady Gaga involved, she got so many eyes on the product that basically American Horror Story, at this point, turned into The Walking Dead. You know, everybody was watching American Horror Story now, right? So, how do you top that, right? Then they come out with season 6, Roanoke. Or Ranoki, everyone says something different. They did this as the shortest season, I don't know why, but they did 10 episodes. And I love the concept what they did. They did, you know, let's see. They did a film within a film within a film, right? If that makes sense, right? They did a mockumentary inside the episode. And what they did with it is that they basically said, okay, you know, this is our haunted story, how we lived in this house, and, you know, it goes in through all that. And then afterwards, you know, the show shows that there was reenactment actors versus the real people who lived it. Think of it kind of like an episode of like A Haunting in Connecticut or A Haunting. You all seen those ghost shows? That's what this season was about. But towards the end of the season, they all go to stay at the house. Shit gets real. You know, I believe they did whatever they can to bring that audience back. They try to go back to their horror roots with season 1. And, you know, it's just, once you change things, it completely changed it. You know, it really did. And that was season 6. Then they turned around and like, did this with season 7. But with season 6, season 5 and 6, a lot of people are going to tell you, those are the worst seasons. You know, rated and reviews and stuff. Season 7, now this one was intriguing to me because it played off on a lot of current issues, right? You know, I'm not a political guy, but I thought what was crazy that they played a lot on the 2016 political election, and they played a lot into the fact of how it built up this cult, you know, and you had Evan Peters as Kai, you know, he basically brainwashes people to follow to do what he does. Sarah Paulson, what I loved about this, they let her be herself, and they just broke all those barriers, which I really loved, you know, the fact that she had a, you know, same-sex partner and they had a son. And then they showed in the aspect of how people were really afraid because Donald Trump had won the election. Some of you might remember, some of you may not, or choose not to care, but during that election, I mean, a lot of people went crazy because, you know, they thought, okay, well, Donald Trump could win, who knows what will happen, right? And then it played off that fear, which was really cool. I really like that, you know, because you don't ever see that in horror films where they play off little things like that. Obviously, it was biased, you know, I'm not going to lie. But what I love the aspect is that they use that as a platform to build up Kai's character. And Kai, he basically becomes this cult leader, you know? And then this whole thing happens where he gets a lot more people to join the cult. And then, you know, he tries to get people to go and do Manson-like things. He gets caught. And then eventually, you know, Sarah Paulson's character, she starts running for Senate. There was a lot of different things into it. I mean, as a normal horror fan, I enjoyed it because it was different. It played on the aspect of the actual title, American Horror Story, which was really cool, you know? I liked that. I really enjoyed that. But a lot of people didn't like it. It was kind of slow, but they did bring in new actors. You had Billie Lourd coming in. Billie Lourd, she came in because she worked with Ryan Murphy with another TV show called Scream Queens. And Scream Queens was another show that Ryan Murphy did, which was originally meant to be a season of American Horror Story, but Fox said, hey, we need to fill up our time slot with a show. Can you do another show? He suggested to him, you know, the script for Scream Queens, which was meant to be a season for American Horror Story. And what he did as a selling point was, hey, I can get Jamie Lee Curtis to come back to horror. And that's what they did. And the first season was great on Scream Queens. Second season, I won't get into that. Maybe that's another day. But that the first season was amazing. And if they would have did that as American Horror Story as a season, that would have been fucking phenomenal. Just because it had a lot of winks to 80 horror films. You could see a lot of the American Horror Story aspects tied into it, you know? It wasn't meant to be a standalone show, but it was meant to be a season for American Horror Story. But they did really good on that, you know? That was going on at the same time when season 6 was out, I believe, Roanoke. Yeah, because it was either Roanoke or they were going to do Scream Queens, and then that's what they went with, you know? I think Roanoke, if they would have swapped it and did Roanoke as its own TV show, I think that would have been more successful than Scream Queens because, you know, with season 2 of Scream Queens, then they just repeated the same storyline, right? Then now you have this new season that just recently came out called Apocalypse, right? I won't get into too much on that other than the fact that they show, like, a baby in red. You see a black hand that comes up and it's, like, trying to quiet the baby. It's supposed to be the end of the world. The apocalypse has happened. People are living in a bunker. And in the bunker, there's, you know, people that, you know, follow Satanism or the Satan. I don't know how they say it for that. I don't follow religion, you know. But they basically believe in the devil, and it follows all this aspect. I think they only got in a few episodes, so that's why I'm not going to break it down, because I'm still watching it myself, and it's pretty good. I'm like, okay, they might have come back to it, you know. But overall, that's American Horror Story. You know, I know a lot of you guys liked it, enjoyed it. For me, what I look at, what makes this show so special is the fact that every season is different. They don't call it by season 1 or 2. They give them names, which is really cool. And 2, you know, they play a lot of that aspect off of different current events, you know. So, I mean, if you lived, obviously you lived. But if you remember the times of what was going on with each season coming out, you'll understand where they were coming from with it. You really would, you know. And for me, I enjoy it. The only thing is, I didn't like when they went Hollywood and did season 5 and season 6, and, you know, they blew it all up and said that Lady Gaga's in it, and, you know, because you didn't really need that. You didn't, you know. You took away a great actor to bring in somebody for a name power, which, okay, I get it. You want more eyes on the product. But at the same time, they almost lost the show viewership. Like, they almost did. It was like a hair off. But, you know, they came back with Cult a little bit different. Roanoke, some people, it's 60-40 with that season. So, you know, they still got a lot of people hooked in. I'm guessing that people that watched it, you know, only for Lady Gaga, they watched it and they're seeing the next season like, what the fuck is this? You know? Because I know I said that. That's what I said. What the fuck is this? But, I mean, they're bringing back the aspect of horror, you know? And I think now, you know, now that the whole Hollywood scene and everything's kind of out of it, they're bringing it back to its roots, what it was, with the original season 1 through 4, which was great. You know, if you go back and watch it any time of the day, those were great seasons. They really were. You know, as I said before, everybody, they have different opinions on each season. My season that I didn't like was season 5, season 6, but, you know, to each his own. I know people that love season 5. I know people that absolutely don't like Lady Gaga's music, but they love season 5, you know, but it's, you know, to me, it's like, okay, that's cool. You know, if you like that, you like that. I'm not going to knock on it, you know. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and my opinion is it's a great show. If I had a chance to pick out any season, I watch every season except season 5 and 6. But that's just me, you know. But, you know, the good thing is with this show, now that they started building their following back, FX or Fox, they announced that they're going to carry on the season all the way up to 10 seasons. Possibly, if the 10th season does good, they'll do it 11th season. So this show's going to be here for a long time, at least 11 years, because every year they do a season, you know. And, you know, I love the aspect that it plays a lot on current events, you know, specifically in Cult, specifically, you know, a little bit in Coven, a little bit in Freak Show, you know, there's a lot of different themes, you know. Even season 1. Season 1, they showed that, they showed the real aspect of it, you know. As I said, once you go through something that fucks everything up or throws a wrench to it, things are never the same, you know? And it played really well on that, you know? The only complaint I have out of this whole series, before I end this episode, because I know I'm going a little bit past my normal 30 minutes, the only thing I would say to adjust is, you know, for some actors, I would love to see them in different roles. Like, for an example, Sarah Paulson, and I think a lot of you are going to agree with me on this. Sarah Paulson, every character she plays from season 2 to now has always had that role where you see them break down, they cry, they're freaked out, then they come back as being strong, you know. It's the same role in every season, and it's like, okay, I get she's a great actor, but put her in a different role, please. You know, not to be mean or anything, her acting's amazing, but, you know, don't put her in the same role in every season, you know? Little things like that I would suggest for the show, honestly. I wouldn't mind it. Like I said, I'll go back and still watch them. But, I mean, just little aspects of that, how they played off of, you know, they put in the actors in the same role. But at the same time, there's that rumor going around that Ryan Murphy said, hey, guess what? All these seasons are all tied in. You'll see him, you know, later on in seasons. You know, like in Cult, they had Twisty the Clown. He ended up being like a killer clown icon in that season, you know? And Hotel, you see the girl who played Precious. She came in from season 3. She was renting a room there, and then they killed her, you know? So it's like, well, okay. I mean, they're tied in a little bit of aspect of this, but I think what he's trying to do is build like his own Stephen King universe. And then eventually, I think it's all going to come to sense when they finally end the series. But I don't know. You know, I'm going to still keep tuning in. It's a great show. I hope you enjoy the show. Because I do, and I know tonight is a new episode that I'm going to have to watch. So let me know in the comments below what you think. If you like the new season, if you like the old season. If you share the same views that I got from watching previous seasons, you know. Because I'm always interested to hear what you guys think. I wouldn't be the SaWGuy without you guys. So, but anyways, that's all I got today, guys. Thank you all for tuning in for American Horror Story, and I'll catch you all next time, okay?